Okay, everybody, we had to do that one again. These guys are relentless. Don't ask. I have no idea. We just had some things happen again. Well, hope you guys are doing okay today. If you all have asthma, now is a good time to start doing something about it. We're being hit with two streams, actually. We have ash coming up from the southern hemisphere, and we have smoke from the north. It's meeting right in the middle. And it just so happens that the USA and Europe are about to have two very stubborn systems that likely will refuse to move out of the way. That means get ready for some very difficult times regarding weather. More strange weather phenomena. And they tried so hard yesterday to reevaluate the weather, right? We had a system over the USA that covered the entirety of the whole USA. And in fact, after some deliberation, they found out, and they actually admitted that it was one big system. Interesting. So now we're having these large systems, which are, they're just affecting quite a bit. And of course, we keep having these northern interrupters, these high pressure systems that are so incredibly strong. They will likely be big catalyst, because we're going to continue to have the catalyst to reverse our jet stream. In fact, some people noticed that yesterday and the day before, and in certain parts of the USA today, same thing, that storms are going in the wrong direction. When that becomes, now we don't have a jet stream reversal yet, but when we do have one, expect those conditions to dry quite a few things out, which means our eastern coast, right, will become like Arizona, Utah, those places. And our west coast is going to become like a temperate forest region, very moist. Even Arizona could have all of its moisture back. It could actually turn into a temperate zone, temperate forest zone, along with Nevada, Utah, Oregon, right? So that could be quite the switch. That also means that Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia will become desert regions. Florida, likewise, desert, deep desert. And that would be, it's happened before quite a few times. It is one of the telltale signs once this happens that we do in fact have forces of a perturber against the earth, or there are at certain times in the history of earth, we've had effects, that pressurize this planet from the outside in. And when this happens, we have a reversal of our jet stream. It's the reason why we have the great dust storms, back in the 20s. Same thing, right? The Dust Bowl, they called it. That too was reversal. And we're looking at, having one of those, it's some of the signs are showing, right? Because you're looking for the development of these rogue high pressure systems, stagnant, weather elements. Meaning, for example, yesterday, we had rain, persistent rain, just like we do today. Persistent rain that's hardly going anywhere, right? Same thing happened last time. These patterns are starting to give alerts again. But I mean, they went back historically. Now, a lot of it's based in modeling. A lot of it based in deep modeling. Some of the same patterns experienced before the Dust Bowl, right? Those years of the USA. Some of those same conditions, patterns, swirls, they're being noticed right now. So, this is one of those events that we understood that we go through. If the jet stream reverses, it does not mean that the earth is reversing also right at that moment. That's not what that means, right? It's not what that means. It didn't reverse in the 20s, but we are looking at very different events now. Okay. Now, hopefully I can get the rest of these streams up. Unfortunately, tonight I'm going to have to deviate from the entirety of all topics. I'm going to talk to you guys about something else. It's going to be short, sweet, and to the point. We have a lot to cover this week. Tonight, I ask your patience. Okay, please, your patience tonight. Tomorrow, I'm not going to ask for your patience. We're just going to go for it. Tomorrow throughout the week. But tonight, I'm asking for your patience so we can finish what we have begun. As you guys may or may not know, I'm about to throw a switch here. And when I flip this switch, things go in a bit of a high gear. So, but when I come back from this, I'm going to get some more of these streams up. I'm going to talk to you guys about a couple of things that are immediate, very important. It affects all of us. I want you guys to be aware of it. Okay? I want you guys to be very aware of it. It will affect all of us. It is foolish, in my opinion. Nevertheless, it's happening anyway. And it'd be good if we were on the same page, especially with this. So I'm going to be back in just a few minutes, and I'm going to talk to you guys about that in just a few minutes right here at the Council of Time. Okay, everybody, I want to thank you for your patience already. And welcome again. Boy, do we have escalatory statements being made all throughout media, phone calls, radio, you name it. Lots of escalatory statements. And Belarus has, they have some deployed equipment there, of course. One of the parts of confusion with the media is that nuclear weapons out of control from Moscow, they are throughout the region in many different places, and they have been for a long time now. They have not been restocked, so to speak, but they have recently. And the reason why is because the USA, of course, when they made that statement that they were going to train pilots, F-16 pilots, a campaign was launched. Part of the campaign is the Allied campaign to motivate troops of NATO, having people have an idea that somehow we've got this war in the bag, right? But I want you guys to use your discernment here. From day one of this war, Allied forces have downplayed just about everything. They have spun most of the attacks. You guys, no doubt you are witness to most of these spun statements. For example, the Ukraine was winning, right? You guys heard that lots of times. The Ukraine is winning. That's what they said. And that Putin was losing and that most of his troops had been destroyed. Well, that was propaganda, of course, but it was also for motivation of forces that are fighting and intervening in that war. They don't read the real numbers of the death toll, right? They don't do that. What you hear, for the most part, is propaganda. Now, certain truths are coming to light. Number one, the nuclear word is being utilized every single day. And unfortunately, the entire world has been absorbed in this conflict. Right now, there's no way it's isolated between Moscow and the Ukraine. There's no way. Right now, it's between NATO and Russia. And one of the biggest obstacles of NATO is Russia, right? So we essentially have a lot of remote operated vehicles, and we're using tactics that are where we can actually have command and control of lots of equipment in the Ukraine against Russia. However, that's not working. In proportion to how Moscow or Russia is being attacked, Putin is also attacking back, right? In proportion. And he still maintains that type of assault. Now, listen, guys, I do realize that most of the people in the USA, most of the people in Europe, most of the people in the UK, if they listen to media, right, they have been steered for the Ukraine, right? We know it's a USA-wide spoken policy that the Ukraine, they're going to be deemed the winners. But a mistake was made. A big mistake was made. And part of that mistake is this. Today, especially today, well, yesterday too, they have been saying, right, communicating a high confidence in NATO's ability to strike back at Moscow if they do anything, right? That's called provocation. That's provocation. They're provoking Russia into acting prematurely, right? So they can zero in on what they're using, so they can have better calculations on what the next step will be. It's very dangerous because they're provoking Russia into an escalated situation here, which, by the way, is working, right? Russia is they're in turn setting up or taking absolute control of launch stations all throughout their province, which can do real damage in that area. They're also communicating with the Middle East, and the Middle East right now is setting up for an offensive, right? The Middle East is, which is why Israel wants to move fast as they continue to pour out this rhetoric regarding the Ukraine. The Ukraine is hurting, by the way, right? They're not winning. They're hurting, truth be told. Use your discernment and understand something, that every single day they work hard at the propaganda to make people believe that Russia is somehow doing something illegal and that Zelensky is not. Well, we know that's wrong on both counts, right? And they're propping up and bragging about some of their placements in the Ukraine, the U.S. is, and NATO is. That's highly irresponsible. It's highly irresponsible to communicate to the media those intricate things about war. That's very irresponsible and dangerous because it will cause an escalation. So, many people right now expect that some of the interference is taking place, some of the jamming is taking place, is just going to increase for Moscow. They have some very powerful weapons. They're going to call the bluff of all of those who keep putting out this propaganda. And it's very unfortunate because people in NATO are going to have a high confidence that somehow the Ukraine is going to win. And that's just not going to happen that way. It won't. It's not going to happen that way. We also have a lot of rhetoric concerning Russia fighting its own troops, right? For example, they showed a drunk, or not drunk, but one of their commanders giving a speech. But if you take note, that commander has been roughed up big time. He was a lieutenant colonel, obviously, by his some things he said. Of course, it was in Russian, but this guy was roughed up pretty bad, and he was told to say everything. Why would that be so dangerous? It's because they're feeding fear into all those who would seek to oppose this NATO alliance, right? Even the Middle East, after catching on to the NATO alliance, has broken away and made their own alliance in the Middle East. So now you have, now listen to this very closely. You have Israel, Saudi Arabia. You have Saudi Arabia and Iran. Did you hear what I said? You have Israel and Saudi Arabia. Israel and Saudi Arabia. Israel and Saudi Arabia. You guys have that one. But you also have Saudi Arabia and Iran. They're joining teams, right? They're going to join forces. And they are most certainly, right? They're going to most certainly start to do exactly what we see these end times bring about. I tell you, this is a good time for the Bible to always be your anchor, right? If the Bible is not your anchor concerning events that will take place, you're going to run around nervous, not knowing what will take place. It is part of the confusion of war itself, right? Many different things are being said, statements are being made. One thing is pretty firm though. one thing is pretty firm. All throughout this time, while they have been fighting, the Ukraine has been receiving ammunition, equipment, and money. That same equipment, right? It's gotten out of control of the Ukraine, but nevertheless, this is where they're being supplied. They're being supplied command and control systems. And what that essentially is a remote operation point for some of the high yield weapons, remote operation point. But mistakes are being made, right? For example, yesterday, again, a nuclear bomber flew over the USA, and they did not realize that the bomber was carrying live nuclear rounds on both wingtips. This happened before, and I'm sure that some of you remember that. It's happening again. You know, what had happened back then is happening right now. Mistakes are going to be made, and the more they continue to do this, most wars begin by some sort of mistake. Not exactly intention, but a mistake. And of course, they cover for that mistake, based upon how the enemy of whatever war they're fighting reacts. But most wars start by silly mistakes. They're starting to make them big time. It's just not going to bode well. And it's really going to pay people to be versed in a post-nuclear world. And the reason why I say that is because if you don't know by now, at some point, I mean, in a very short time, it could actually happen at any day now. Some nuclear weapon is going to be utilized. It's going to be used, whether that be a nuclear IDE, direct sabotage, or launch, right? Or even some sort of defensive launch will experience fallout. And that fallout is going to be pretty expansive, right? People will get sick. They will, from that fallout. Now, you guys are Christians. Remember something. God will determine how these events unfold, right? God will do that. Let none of us ever pretend somehow we can speak for the living God. We cannot. We are observers. That's what we are. God will do exactly what he has decreed must be done by way of prophecy. We're not going to predict what he's going to do. I never try to do that. Nor do I try to get ahead of him. I don't do that. He will have happened what will take place. We will endure what we must endure, right? And I never worry about what I don't have to endure, because obviously you don't have to endure it. But when it comes to those events, understand that we live in the last days. There is an absolute realignment in the Middle East. An absolute realignment. New things are happening every single day. The tension that's being felt is building every single day, and the uncertainty factor is being raised every single day. Every single day. So being familiar again for the post-nuclear world is a plus, right? Learn how to mitigate radiation. Learn how to do that. Now I'm going to go back and revisit that, but right now I'm going to talk about some of the weather, which is only going to make some of the potential mistakes of the Ukraine and Moscow and NATO worse. It's going to make it worse. We have volcanic eruptions happening in too many different places. We have alterations in our jet stream and patterns of storms. We have smoke in the USA. We have smoke coming down from Canada. The jet stream is going to take this right over every part we can touch, right? Not necessarily to a degree that most people think it would initialize the first time, but some of that smoke is spreading because the fires are spreading. They can't put the fires out in Canada Volcanoes continue to erupt. The sea is starting to light up at nighttime. Pilots are taking pictures of the sea yet again. I mean, it's lit up like a candle, but the haze is starting to settle in. The haze. That's going to wreak havoc on those who have a hard time breathing. How many of you have bronchial issues, breathing issues? I would say quite a bit in this day and age, due to our own bad habits and things that we've done. But a lot of people have breathing problems. Sometimes at no fault of yourself, but some people have breathing problems. And with this smoke coming in, that's going to act as an irritant, right? Please don't wait until you get smoked out to have some precautions in order. Okay. The ash, nobody can hide from, really. It will fall everywhere, as it did. I believe that was 2016. I believe 16 and 17, 2016 and 17. Ash was settling on the cars. All right. So that was 16 and 17. People noticed that. This time, entire mountain ranges have been totally wiped out. You can't see them because of smoke. And it will continue to billow. To my understanding, in Canada, they had to fall back or come out of some of those burn areas because they couldn't do anything with the fires. They were much too intense. The smoke is increasing, right? It's going to cause animal displacements. Temperatures will begin to fluctuate violently. And that in combination with some of the volcanism that's happening, we just have double troubles all over the place, but it's still biblical, right? It's still biblical. It's still in the realm of the Bible. In fact, I'm going to read some of that here in a few minutes in the Bible, just so you understand, because if we don't, certain things that shouldn't be sensationalized will be. Your focus is going to be in the wrong areas based on fear, self-preservation, or something like that. When in truth, our attention should really be upon Christ, right? Your walk with Christ is very important, even in these troubled times. The question is, how do you stay focused on Christ in a world that's tearing itself apart? How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you stay focused on Christ with a looming threat? How do you do that? That's something you have to get used to. We've had this threat of fire, storms, volcanism for many years, many years. But it's just now taking effect due to changes in weather. We're going to see more and more stalled systems, which means whatever's in the atmosphere is going to come tumbling to the earth in large quantities. We see that now happening in a lot of places. And I hope you guys are prepped and ready for that. Now, as I said before, we got to go over some things here in COT. One of the biggest reasons is so that nobody gets confused about the end times, right? There are elements to the end times that will stay consistent. You are one of them. Your salvation is one of them. Your redemption is one of them. It is the biggest one. It's the reason why all this is happening. You guys know that? Prophecy comes about for you, not against you. You guys know that? Not against you. Technology is being forced or crammed in to this picture likewise. And we all know this will eventually support the beast. But so let me mess up the whole picture. In the Bible, it says, when they say peace and safety, which is, that's actually peace and security, right? That is a policy, peace and security, but it's not been achievable. Hopefully you all see that. So when we go over these things in Revelation, certain things throughout the Word of God, remember something. God is doing what he's doing for your absolute deliverance. I know it's hard to get around that sometimes. It's hard to accept that sometimes. And does it mean you cast down all the information that you would have about the end times? No. It is good to have situational awareness, right? It is very good. I personally, I'm not going to be ignorant concerning what's happening in the world. Most people look away and put their heads in the sand, right? But if you do that, you're just going to spawn your imagination. You're going to cause yourself to start thinking up worst case scenarios. Then you'll be frightened. That's going to plague you by way of your own dreams. And before you know it, you're a nervous wreck simply because you did not trust the Most High and what He was doing for you in your lives. So it's important that we go over those things, right? The mark of the beast, that's important. What's happening in the Middle East and what it looks like once the beast is ruling and reigning over those kingdoms. And what in the world happened to the USA? That's very important, right? And what is this message of tidings out of the East and out of the West? Who are these people, right? Those on the outskirts. So anyway, guys, we're facing that. And, I want you guys to also listen for your own security. I want you guys to ask questions because I know that some of you had some pretty decent questions last time, right? I didn't get a chance to answer those, and it's not good for somebody to have these continued questions and have no answers going forward, right? We have to get ready for this environmental change the earth is undergoing. It's going to be quite challenging, very challenging, but it's all going to change. None of us will have a true advantage. If it's not by grace, right? It's just not going to work all the way for anybody. If not by grace. If not by grace. Okay, somebody has something over. They said, major question. Let's see. I don't see it, guys. I'm blind one. Oh, what do you see about that NATO exercise come June 12th and 24th? As of late, everybody should have noticed that there have been 4 operations that were under the guise of training, right? NATO exercises, but they were in fact operations that took place. So keep that in mind with all these planned operations. Listen, if civilians, if people out there, the average person, if they know all about the news and that news is accurate, then so does the enemy. Correct? Isn't that correct? If somebody goes on CNN, Fox, or one of these news organizations, even on YouTube, right? Or any public forum for that matter, if they start talking about the facts of certain whereabouts, the whole world is going to know. And I can guarantee if the world knew certain hard spots that are being fortified right now and why they're being fortified, if they were living in those areas, they would probably rush to help. All right? So that's why discernment's so good. So you can be led of the Lord in these decisions so that you're not jumping the gun too prematurely. Because wouldn't it be a shame if you threw in the towel, started making your preparations for the very end, and then the storm quiets for another year? Wouldn't that be awful? We don't want to do that. They did that with 2012. We don't want to repeat that, right? Nobody wants to repeat that again. So, again, the Bible is the anchor in this. Somebody says, question, Michael, could you tell us about the vials and horses? The vials in Revelation? Is that what you're talking about? If you could clarify, that would be great. Somebody said, like the Lord wants us here for others. Yes. In fact, I believe all of us are here for the sake of somebody else. I do believe that. I do believe that. I do believe that. Do you guys have those? I know a lot of people bought up those radiation pills. Did you guys buy some of those? I'm sure that quite a few of you did. You bought some of those. Also, hopefully you have your contact points for your family. That's another important thing. Guys, make sure you have a designated location for your family to meet up in the event of anything happening outside the norm. Because you better believe this way of ideology, this way that people are following in the earth, that's going to alter based on the times that we're thrust into. People are going to start following different standards, if you would. It's going to throw them off on their beliefs. Some people are just going to take charge and make up things. And they're going to do this prematurely before things are absolutely necessary, right? They're going to do this because they're going to be interested in saving their own skins. With the Lord, you don't have to save your own life. You don't do that. Your life is in the hands of the Messiah, right? You don't have to run around in the earth saving yourselves. And in fact, I believe that's how people will really take the mark of the beast. I really do. They're going to take it saving themselves. It's easy to say no to a mark or bracelet or something like that when you don't really need it. But what if you woke up with no electricity, no water, no anything? And the only way to get your water restored, your electricity restored, is for you to agree to have citizenship with, some new paradigm in the earth. That wouldn't be good, right? Because then in order to take on another oath, you have to renounce all sovereigns. In order to do that, we know what that entails. I don't believe that anybody can be tricked into taking the mark either. I don't believe that. I just don't believe that. It's going to be quite intentional. I think that quite a few people are going to take it because in a way, they take the mark right now. They do. Anything to save their situation. They do that a lot. Somebody said, Dr. Campbell on YouTube was mentioning the UK government should be handing out those pills for the UK as precaution. Oh, well, they should be. They really should be. And you guys are going to hear more and more about a potential nuclear problem in Moscow, in the Ukraine, in the USA, and in Mexico. That you'll hear about. And when you do, understand that things are going to be just like they are right now, but we will have drawn closer to that date of war. I don't think we're going to dodge this war. People are too unstable, right? Now here at COT, we've got some things put on the back burner. I can't discuss them, right? Can't discuss what COT has done. We'll just do things when the time comes. But lots of people bought up that potassium grade substance, and it's gone for the most part. I believe there's one more tank or vat or storage place that can hold some. I'm not sure. Concerning all those pills and stuff, not sure how many of you are going to be able to acquire any once the government sucks up the rest of them. In fact, don't they have a shortage of those potassium pills, guys? I believe they have a shortage, but they will start handing things out. So they're not cold-hearted that way, right? They will. They'll start handing things out if it gets that bad. But in America, we're going to have a problem with terrorism. Terrorism mixed with some nuclear issues. We're going to have a problem with that. We're just too unsecure here in America. In the UK, I believe they're going to have a direct issue with nuclear problems, direct issues. In Germany, they're target number one. In Italy, because the Vatican is involved directly with talks with Ukraine, he'll be spared, but he's also going to have to broker something, right? There's a Muslim buildup. And when I say Muslim, what I mean is there are a lot of radical folks who believe in the end times that believe in the Muslim religion who are ready to do whatever's necessary, right? To kick this off. And even last week, there was a discussion I was having with someone concerning the Islamic uprising, but they needed a catalyst. I believe that catalyst came yesterday. And the catalyst was after peace talks between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Do you guys not know that Saudi Arabia put, I believe it was three. No, I'm sorry. It was five Islamic individuals from Iran. They put them to death. That was not a smart move. So that's provocation enough to start to separate, right? Some of those factions over there. That separation is going to cause tension and wars. And keep in mind, if they began fighting each other, that's going to spill over to Israel. Because they do have nukes. And guys, don't fall for this. You guys remember when Obama was in his first term, what did they tell you about nuclear weapons in Iran? Did they not say in 60 days he would have a nuclear warhead? Didn't Benjamin Netanyahu come all the way over here to the USA because he said all of his experts stated that within a month Iran would have a nuclear warhead? That was back in 2008 and 9 and 10 and 11. You guys remember that. They kept saying that. They said, they kept saying that Iran is a month from breakout, right? Iran is a week from breakout. Iran is a couple months from having that breakout, from having their nuclear warheads ready. You guys remember that back then. This is 2023. And you know what they're saying now? They're using this as propaganda. Because there's no way experts are going to tell you that they're 30 days away back in 2009. They don't have a nuclear weapon right now, right? Plus, hardly anybody discusses the nuclear weapons that they took when Russia was over there, right? When Iran and Iraq were side by side before their feuds, they had an exchange in a few things in large weapons, right? Which is why they have fortified underground. These are hardened facilities. They're very difficult to go to. You could blow up everything on the top side of Iran and still not touch their military portion of that country. Do you guys know that? Most of their equipment is underground. Their supplies underground, hospitals underground, large buildings, 13, 14, 20 floors underground. Nowadays, they use that as propaganda. And the propaganda has become so popular, people have no idea what to believe. That's why the Bible should be an anchor, a big anchor, right? It has never been wrong yet. I don't suspect it will be wrong. I think that sometimes we jump the gun and in hindsight, we put things together, but it'll eventually play out. I just suspect it's going to happen sooner than we're ready for, right? Many things will. They're going to happen sooner than we're ready for. How do you guys hear me, by the way? Before I start going, somebody says, what about the secret Jesuits in so many places? They've always been a lot of places. Always. Do you guys know the history of Jesuits? Do you guys know that? The history of where they came from, what they were doing, what they're for, what they're a part of, and what they're not a part of? You guys have good sound in COT? Okay. I'm hearing feedback I have a small speaker in my ear, small headset in my ear, and I can hear dropouts. for some reason. Could be specific to your area if you're having issues like that. Everybody else is pretty smooth, except Europe is having an issue tonight. A couple other places are having issues tonight. And I'm trying to get that squared away as I'm talking. It's like chewing gum and stirring eggs at the same time. That's what it's like. Hold on, guys. Let me see if I can get this squared away. I don't know what happened prior to me coming on air, but everything dropped out. Everything did. I did not investigate that yet, but everything dropped out. Okay. Let me get that in there. Hold on, guys, just for a second, please. Gotta bear with me. I have all screens lit up. Stuff's all over the place. Remember, you guys chat this week. You're bought into the main chat rooms where we can start some real secured conversations. Those bracelets you mentioned on Basketball Show. Is that okay to take your bracelet? It's not the mark. Okay, guys, let's talk about the mark real quick. Just real quick, I want you guys to understand something though. All details. First of all, if you're written in the book of life, you're not going to take the mark of the beast. Right? Why? Because if you're written in the book of life, you do not believe how man is running the earth. You're not part of that. You don't believe in these ideologies of mankind, and so by way of desire, right? You're not accepting certain things. I personally believe that people will accept the mark. And when I mean accept, I mean you're not going to be tricked into wearing the mark of the beast, right? Because if that were the case, not one of us would make it to the kingdom right now. All of us have been duped into ingesting things that shouldn't be into our systems. All of us have. If you're alive, you have ingested things that shouldn't be in your system. And that's going to get, that's going to continue to get, more challenging. But being forced to take the mark of the beast, there are too many things that people have been forced to take and they didn't know they were a part of it. And if that same concept can work for the beast, then who's going to make it into the kingdom? Who would do that? Hardly anybody, right? I personally believe in a scenario, I'm going to share it with you guys so you understand a portion of this mark of the beast issue. You ready? We all know about Elon Musk. I believe that Pastor Paul briefed everybody the other day on Elon Musk and Neuralink, right? Those chips. I only discussed that one time here, I believe. Just one time. I had forgotten when, but we discussed that one time. But imagine a person who's not healthy, right? They're in pain. They've tried to pray. They went to churches. They were not healed. They're still in pain. The same individual is given a bracelet or a neck apparatus, something that goes around the neck. And all of a sudden, all the pain they felt is gone. So long as they wear that device. I mean, it's absolutely gone, right? They don't have to become a part of some strange philosophy to keep it, but the pain is gone. How many people would keep that bracelet or that neck piece? How many people would keep it if it just stopped all the aches and pains in your body? Well, here's what happened is when you're in pain for a long time and all of a sudden that pain is gone, you're going to feel euphoric. And anything that can stop your pain can also trick your system into releasing dopamine. Right? Dopamine. And so dopamine is what you feel when you eat and you get happy and you're relieved and you're not starving and you feel better, right? That's the release of dopamine. That's part of the body's reward system. How many people would just give that up and go back to the pain? How many? How many? How many would do that? Somebody said endorphins. Well, in this case, we're talking about dopamine. Dopamine is pretty strong, right? It's just like THC. THC does not make you high. Did you guys know that? THC tricks the body into flooding your system or releasing an abundance of a chemical that makes you very high. So that's why when a person stops smoking marijuana, right, and they've smoked it for a long time, if they ever stop smoking it, the body does not release any of those euphoric chemicals in the body, and they go into this depressive, mean, aggravated state. You guys didn't know that, did you? You didn't know that marijuana is psychologically addictive, big time. You didn't know that, did you? Meaning that when you're not smoking marijuana, your body, because it's been tricked so many times into releasing or flooding your system, right, with these chemicals that make you feel euphoric. When you stop smoking, there's no release of them at all. And when that happens, you start feeling everything. Emotionally, you start responding to everything. And it takes a while to get your balance back. See how they say, oh, well, and experts, what do they say? You can smoke marijuana, no big deal, right? That's a lie. You smoke marijuana, you're going to train your body to flood your system only when smoking that marijuana. And the day will come where you cannot get it. And when you cannot get it, that's when you're going to find out you actually needed it, but you can't get it. Then you're going to have to be miserable and retrain your mind and your body and everything else so that, your body will begin to release those chemicals on its own. Same thing goes with pills. Pills do not stop the pain. Pills trick the body into releasing an obscene amount of these chemicals. Well, and you guys know about that. I hate to tell you that about marijuana, but that's just the way it is. That's the way it is, right? That goes for tobacco likewise. So then the average person who smokes, if you smoke cigarettes, you are constantly in a high state. And when you start normalizing, it feels weird. Right? It feels strange. Somebody says, can damage frontal lobe body. Somebody says, can damage frontal lobe cause body not produce the main Dutch thing husband is producing long-term memory. It's how people have been tricked into getting and using cell phones. Well, you guys see that about marijuana though, right? How many people would give up a device that would cause them to not have pain, not have to deal with the anguish of mental difficulties and kind of like an acquisition of the world through this device? It would cause it a euphoric feeling. How many people would just give that up to go back to feeling dead again? And believe me, it makes a difference. For those of you who don't have those issues, you'll not understand until you do, right? Pain can do things to you. You really can. And when somebody relieves you of that pain, whatever the item is, right? All they have to do is say it's illegal. And people are going to say, oh, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. Here's the problem though. Once they start, because those devices can cause the body to release chemicals. Once they start feeling the effects of being okay again, of everything being all right, of them not being in pain, they're going to be a brand new person, right? Because here's what you may not know. Your personality and everything changes in the presence of those released chemicals from inside the body. Those chemicals that cause a type of euphoric feeling, those chemicals that stop pain at its source, that same concoction or that same thing creates a desire for a person to go on with their new life, but they can only have a new life absent their pain. The threat of having that device taken away is going to be an awful thought for somebody. It would almost be like somebody saying they're going to take your money away, right? You guys use money, correct? Nobody forced you to use money. But if you had a way to stop anybody from taking your money, you would employ that method, wouldn't you? Which means you have been trained to know what it's like to have money and to know what it's like not to have money. You can feel powerless without money, helpless without money. Nobody wants to be in that state of existence. And so what do? We say we love the Lord. And most of our prayers are that we continue, right, to have those things we have. With the technology that's coming out, because it will have power to dampen pain. How many people do you think will just give that up? They're going to feel like a brand new person. They're going to be filled with desires that you wouldn't believe. They're not going to give that up. They just won't. And in that case, if you choose comfort, right, and you know it's causing you to go off balance with Christ, if you choose that comfort, you're going to be held accountable. With the mark, you're going to have to make a choice. It is our Father who will make those choices. Very clear warning. Okay, folks, I'm going to take a small break, and I'll be right back in just a few minutes. Somebody says, Michael, thank you for your faithfulness. No, you do. Oh, okay. You are welcome. I just want you guys to contemplate the truth. Contemplate the truth about the mark. You're not going to be tricked. I don't think anybody's going to be tricked into having it. I think people are going to choose it because they don't want to deal with any discomfort. Just like people don't want to deal with poverty, right? And if somebody gives you an opportunity to overcome poverty, to overcome sickness, to overcome pain, to overcome discomfort, you're going to take it. How do I know that? Because people smoke marijuana. They're not smoking marijuana because it's good for your hair. They're smoking it because it helps them deal with the world. A lot of people are taking pills. They're compliant with doctors so they can continue to get the medicine. Why? Because they are escaping what it is to hurt, to have pain, to do all those things, right? A lot of people smoke cigarettes. Why do they continue to smoke them? Because they don't like the feeling of what happens when they don't smoke them. They go through withdrawal symptoms. If the average person could get past the withdrawal symptoms, lots of people would quit. They would quit, right? Because they don't like doing it. But the problem is they know they have to face the withdrawal symptoms. And some people have felt the withdrawal symptoms, and they'll tell a person it's not worth it. They'll tell them in a heartbeat it's not worth starting this habit. Folks, stand by. I'm going to take a small break, and I'll be right back in just a few minutes right here at COT. Thank you for being patient today. Lots of things going on. I'm trying to adjust digital things while I'm talking, and sometimes that's not working out so well. Anyway, I thank you for your patience. I'll be right back in just a few minutes. Isn't it a good thing that with Christ, we'll be spared from taking the mark of the beast? Isn't that something? Without Christ, you're doomed. That means everybody who truly believes in Christ, right? You won't take the mark of the beast because of Christ, not because of yourselves. We have to have money, food. Has anybody ever been hungry? Anybody ever gone about 14 days without food? I did that twice. I never wish to do that again. And it wasn't planned. So it wasn't like fasting, right? And that was when we thought we knew what conditions would be like, and we severely overestimated some things. Running hard day and night. After about 14 days, I'm telling you, you'd eat your buddy next to you if you could. Everybody starts looking like hamburgers and hot dogs. Your mind will play tricks on you, right? Your taste buds change. Ants start smelling like lemons and candy. That's the truth, right? So everything changes. And with that type of hunger, it's an insatiable desire that you have to eat. So the mark of the beast is going to be much like that. How many of you would go without a bank account or driver's license or an ID card, period? Not many of us would do that. See, the difference now is that it's not mandatory. We don't have to renounce Christ to have it, right? But I want you guys to think of this. Here we go. I'm going to give you guys my take on the mark and why we're going to need Christ, or a person just simply won't make it. Especially with some of the new technology that they have. In the medical field, they have a chip that will stop your pain. It will cause the body to release the chemicals necessary to stop your pain. But it also causes a euphoric feeling. Now, when a person is drunk, do they behave themselves? Yes or no? When a person is intoxicated and they're feeling really good, right? When a person is high and they're feeling really good, do they behave themselves? Chances are no, they don't. They throw caution to the wind because their system is flooded, right, with these pleasure chemicals, and everything becomes something you can do without consequences, right? If a person is given too much of a stimulant, they're going to be in a type of drunken state, a euphoric state. And at that point, they're going to have desires they never had before. Desires that will absolutely 100% begin to corrupt them. Right? Now, I can say that I've seen people who were drunk, who hated that they were drunk, and would ask the Lord for forgiveness. They wouldn't do anything raunchy or any of those things, right? They would simply ask for forgiveness. And they knew they had an issue and they stopped, right? I saw people like that. I've seen people like that. But I've seen other people who drink and they become demons, devils, and everything else. Their true desires come out. So if you're feeling euphoric, if you have access to everything, you're not going to so easily give that up. You're going to have some decisions to make. And how many of you would go back to a broken life and say goodbye to that $1 million life? Not too many people, would they? Not too many people would do that. This mark, by way of desire, is going to cause people to choose based on the truth of who they are. See, if a person really believes in Christ, not just knows about him, but if they really believe in Christ, and they really believe in the gospel, they really believe in the kingdom, and they really believe what Jesus said, it doesn't matter how euphoric they are, they will turn it down, fall to their knees, and say, Lord, forgive me. They will. They will not choose this rich, desirous life over Christ. They will not. They won't. When everything comes to its fullness, they're going to drop everything they have and go back to Christ and let the chips fall where they may. If a person does not really believe in the gospel, but they've been trying to acting like it, right? They will take every opportunity to further themselves, leaving everybody behind. See, there are people right now who there are lots of people among us. You can't see them for what they are because that hasn't been presented yet. Right? I knew a guy who said he loved the Lord, but he fired people like it was, like they were candy. He didn't care about their lives. You know what he did? He said, well, this is business and that's faith. And so you have to separate the two. And he was quite mean. That's fake, because when you believe in the gospel, when you believe in Christ, you don't separate Christ from your life ever. There is no separation. Right? You're a kingdom, a citizen living in the earth, and you have the standards of that kingdom. You don't just throw them away to make a profit in the world. But a lot of people will do that. A lot of people are going to find themselves throwing everything away just so they can get ahead. I've seen people throw their own children. In fact, the Bible gives a hint that people will discard their children. I remember in COT back when it first began, me and Angela were talking about that. She said, I don't want to be here when that happens, because I was telling her people are going to start abandoning their children like they're doing now, but they're going to be alive and walking. Do you know the rate of children who are being abandoned has skyrocketed? I believe the percentage is like 500% increase. It's a 500% increase in infants that are left in buildings, on the roads, infants that are on sidewalks and everywhere else. People are abandoning their children because they are a burden. They're doing it without the mark. And if that's happening without the mark, if people will compromise their beliefs for the sake of profits, right? If people will go, if God said playing the lottery was not permitted, how many people will still play the lottery thinking they're going to win $1 million? Well, nobody will find out. Let me go ahead and win this $1 million, and then I can help a lot of people. It's how they fool themselves. They say those things. You know, when I get this or that, then I'm going to help. It's the same adage every single time. And they will forego everything to do that. I personally believe it's going to happen that way. But this time, when a person slips up because forgiveness will be withdrawn, it's going to be too late. There will come a time when forgiveness will be no more. See, and if a person slips up during that time, that's it. That's it. If forgiveness is withdrawn, right? And somebody does that, they can't be forgiven, can they? No, they cannot. So whatever they take, whatever they do, whatever they say, if they set the Lord aside, if they deny him, which is what the Lord said they would do, they would deny him, didn't he? And he said, if you deny me before men, I'll deny you before the angels. And I'm telling you, somehow with this mark, people are going to deny Christ. Doesn't matter if it's big or small. See, because if you believe in the gospel, there's no way in the world you're going to deny Christ. In fact, those of you who believe in Christ in truth, if somebody came in here, right, and they said, listen, I'm going to give everybody $100,000, right? And they said, well, all you have to do is not comment. I'm going to say something, and just don't make a comment. And that person stood up and said, that Jesus Christ is not real. Every single believing Christian would tell him to get out. He is real, and you don't belong here. They wouldn't care about the $1 million. I've noticed something. When you truly believe in Christ, it does not matter what a person is going to offer. When they let something like that come out of their lips, something rises up within that believer. An actual defender of the faith will stand up inside a believer. It doesn't matter if that person is drunk. I've seen drunk people stand up and say, don't use the Lord's name in vain like that. I've seen that before. People who love the Lord, who just, they're caught up in sin or whatever, they still believe they will never deny Christ. When the mark comes out, people are going to take the mark and shut up about their faith. They're going to scoot Christ to the side. He gave us a warning. He said, if you deny me before men, I'll deny you before the angels. Didn't he? Didn't he say that? Before the holy angels, he'll deny you. And so I believe all this will go together. I do. I believe that people are going to compromise one time too many, and they won't come back from it. That's what I believe. And I believe they're going to feel so euphoric in what they're doing. So many things are going to be fulfilled that they're going to say, well, at least now I have a life, and I never had a life before. I was never able to take this vacation. I was never able to buy this. Did you notice in Revelation when the two witnesses lay dead in the street that people bought each other presents? You cannot buy somebody else a present if you're financially strapped. So there's some wealth floating around in the beast system, isn't there? There you go. So if you're part of that beast system, you're not going to struggle. You're just not. The struggle is going to be gone. See, we've got AI. We've got a brand new financial institution on the rise. All these problems of greed and everything else, that's going to be solved. Nobody's going to be financially strapped, and things are actually going to work. But how many people will opt to take that system? Absent Christ, right? Or just simply deny that system and keep their faith. See, that's going to be the question. Are you going to choose yourself or will you choose Christ? When you come down to that choice, that's where people are going to have a problem. It's also why people don't want to be here, because I heard a lot of people say, I can't make that choice. Well, if you can't make it now, you're not going to make it. Because everybody has to be tried, one way or the other. Whether the mark of the beast is here or not, people have to make a choice. There's going to be a time where you can deny Christ and survive and thrive, or you can keep your faith, and it's going to look like you're going to fall straight into the pit. But I'll tell you something, just like Daniel in the lion's den. All of them had threats over their heads. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? They had threats. But what did they do? They never gave up their faith. They said, oh, well, I'm going to keep my faith. I'm not giving that up. I'm not going to worship any other gods. I'm not going to denounce the living God for you or anybody else. They got thrown into the fire and they never felt the fire. Daniel got thrown in the lion's den and didn't even receive so much as a scratch. Do you see that? So it's going to look like things are going to fall apart, but the truth is, it won't. Haven't we learned that yet? Huh? Haven't we learned that? Many of you have had hardships in your life. You have. But see, later on in your life, you came to Christ. You're getting serious about the word. Everything changes from there. Now, in your mind, though, you're going to think you could possibly suffer like you have before. Not true. Not true. When this time comes up, it's going to look like it's going to be the end of you. It's going to look like you're going to be the laughing stock in front of everybody. It's going to look that way. God does not require that. He is not some human being with some twisted ideology about all these ideas we put in the movies. That's not how he works. In fact, he told us what would happen. Those who believe in Christ are already being persecuted. Jesus said that the world persecuted him, it hated him, and that if you believe in him, it's going to hate you too. That means, since you have become a believer, right? If you're walking as a believer in truth, you're being persecuted, period. And those, what did he say? Those who cry now will laugh later. But those who laugh now are going to cry later. See, many of you have already faced hardship. You faced your period. And guess what you said? You said, I'm not going to renounce Christ for nothing. See, many of you have come to the point, even for a small advantage, you will not compromise your faith. Do you hear me? Even for a small advantage, you will not compromise your faith. I'm telling you right now that you've already succeeded in things, but a lot of people have not. See, some people have skipped and they have escaped everything so much, they still have to face that trial. Everybody has to face that trial. And those who skipped it all throughout life, who are laughing and living it up, they've got to face it in the end. One way or the other. Everybody is tested with that trial of their faith. They will choose to save themselves or they will choose to keep their faith. Everybody faces that, right? Everybody faces that. There, no doubt there are many of you out there, you couldn't get the job that you wanted because you were not going to be a part of an organization that did what they did against the Lord your God and against Christ. And so you couldn't take the promotion because it would cause you to compromise who you were, right? Many of you couldn't even take it, right? Some of you left your position because they were asking you to become a person you were not. And you're not going to take that route, right? So you actually already lost. To the world you lost, but you gained everything else with the Lord. You've already faced your trial. See, that's why some people, right? Some people are not going to be here during that time because they've already gone through it. There's no need for them to go through it, but some people have escaped just about everything. When that situation arises, they take off running. They don't want to face it. They act like they don't see it, right? And the Lord is kind. He's also just. And so everybody's going to have their opportunity to face that moment. And what they do in that moment is going to be permanent. No one will escape that one, right? No one will escape that one. And all of us are going to have to face it. And I believe that the mark is that final one, right? That public one, that final public one for all those who have escaped a lifetime of those trials. They're going to face it all at one time. And it's important that they do so because the Lord doesn't want any more fallen angels, fallen children. Can you imagine if a person gets into the kingdom? They're in the kingdom, they make it into eternal life, and then all of a sudden they fall away. No, that's not going to happen. So you're being pre-qualified. Everybody who makes it into eternity will not fall. They are indeed loyal. They indeed believe. And how's that being tested? By all the events here. See, if you're loyal here and you can't see a thing and you don't experience all the supernatural things here on the earth, if you're loyal here, right, you're most certainly going to be loyal in eternity when you see everything. That's why those people who say, well, I would believe if I could see it, they're in trouble. That means they don't want to make that choice. The truth is in the Word of God. Everybody knows who Jesus is. Not everybody is going to choose him. And they will continue to come up with excuses. They know what the real deal is, but they choose to save themselves. That means their heart is not with Christ, nor the kingdom, nor their Father. And that's why they continue to choose evil. You guys see how that works? That's why I believe the beast, this taking of the mark of the beast, right? You're going to see it. You're going to notice it. You're going to say, no way, not doing that. Because you'll have to compromise something of yourselves. And listen, to deny Christ, you can do that by your actions. You can do that easily by your actions. It's going to be based on what you accept. If this world is shaken, truly shaken, and a system is put together, right? And it starts to repair those shaken places. And the economy is booming and people are getting what they want. And everybody gets a different type credit. And in fact, the entire system changes into something nobody ever saw before, right? Where even the capitalists are satisfied. That's going to cause a problem, isn't it? See, it would be so easy. It would be so easy if the system that was coming was absolute socialism. I don't believe that's what it's going to be. I think it's going to be something appealing to those of you who believe in Christ. Do you hear me? See, the weapons are against those who believe in Christ because the true weapon in this world is against Christ. So it's going to be something appealing to you, not something repulsive to you. Do you see that? It's going to be something appealing to you. How dumb would Satan be if he made stuff unattractive for us? How do you think Christian, a person who is marked for salvation, falls into sin in the first place? Because it's appealing. He's not going to make it seem like something we're just going to outright reject. It's going to be something beautiful for us, something that's close to holiness. And I'm telling you right now, if a person doesn't if they have not solidified their relationship with Christ, they're going to fall for the little traps into the world. And I'll tell you something. I know this because people are falling for the traps right now. Right now. It's almost a test to see who's going to take the mark and who won't. Right now, things are happening in very subtle ways. Because what will a Christian do to get ahead? What will a Christian do to save their reputation? What will they do so that they're not the ones without the running water? What are they going to do so that their car is not repossessed? Huh? I'm telling you right now, they're doing everything and anything. You better believe it's happening right now. The trial is on. This mark of the beast, it just seals the deal. That's all. It's going to seal the deal. But you better believe the process has already begun. It's already begun. There's a concept that I used to accept, I never accept anymore. When I was a young Christian, I accepted the concept that things were coming. And I learned never to do that. Because if you believe that things are coming and in the future, what you end up doing is relaxing now. You're not watching for anything right now, right? But when you read the Bible, you start to realize Satan's entire mission is against the righteous. He's going to show up everywhere the word shows up. And he will fight against the word, and God allows him to do it. So he's been at work for a long time. He's conditioning people so that when this final thing comes about, he can seal many in the darkness by way of that mark. That's their seal of doom. But they're being conditioned now. And all these things I've ever gone through in my life, I'm telling you right now, they were asking a question. Everything I did that drew me into sin, it was posing a question to me. It was almost as if something were saying, would you turn away from God for this? And every time I went into sin, I was saying yes. Every single time. Do you know when I caught on to that? I started hating sin, the sin within myself. I started to hate the flesh and everything else that would agree with sin. Because I saw that question being asked over and over and over again. And I saw I kept falling for it over and over and over again, thinking it was subtle, thinking that the big things were in the future. Wrong. They were happening right there, Johnny on the spot. See, isn't it a bad thing when you find out you're falling every single day, but in your own mind, you think, oh, I haven't fallen yet because the big stuff hasn't happened yet. And I'll be ready when the big stuff comes. But all the while, you're compromising and falling and making the wrong choices. See, when you catch on to that, that's when you start saying, nope, nope, nope. There is a key to overcoming sin. It's when you start hating sin within yourself. Listen to me. Not hating sin within somebody else, that does no good. That puts you in this position of sainthood, like you've already made it. No, when you can't stand the sin within yourself, when you can't stand how your body responds to things, when you can't stand how you agree with sinful things, that's when the change comes. That's when you begin to overcome through Christ. When you recognize the sin in your own life and you stand against it. When you stand against your own flesh. And when your flesh tries to rise, you tell it to shut up and sit down. When you remind it that you're driving, not the flesh. You're driving. You're in the driver's seat. See, in my life, I found out my life and my evaluation of darkness and sin had nothing to do with anybody else. And it had everything to do with me. But for a long time, I was overlooking myself and looking at everybody else, always pointing, look how dark that is. Look how dark that is. I quit doing that being a young Christian. And I pointed at me and said, look at the darkness in me. Let me tell you what I did. Let me give you this example. Let me share this with you. Because I could see Satan was having people conditioned to be sealed with the mark of the beast at the end, but they were being conditioned now, which means they were failing now, and they were choosing Satan now before the mark ever came out. When you see that, that's when you start making a change. It's like an addiction. Anybody can overcome an addiction. You know what the problem is? You don't hate the addiction yet. That's why you can't overcome it. You don't see the damage it's doing, do you? Let me give you a key to life. You can see something. If something hurts you, you're going to say, so what? It's just hurting me, no big deal. That's what you'll end up saying. But when you see something working through you, hurting everybody else, if you have an ounce of love in your heart, you're going to hate that thing within yourself that hurts somebody else. And let me tell you something. That's when you stand up and you stop whimpering, saying, well, I can't do it. That's when you stand up and fight and say, well, I'll fall over dead, but I won't touch it again. That's when the Lord is right there with you. When you begin to fight for what is right and holy, The Lord is right there with you. You can't get up whimpering, Lord, remove this. I still like doing it. I don't see him. No, he's not even going to show up for that because you have not made up your mind. You don't even know what it is yet. But when you see what it's doing to other people through you, he's right there with you. And let me tell you this other key. When you see that and you actually hate it, you'd be surprised the strength God has already placed in you. We don't use the strength he's given us because we whimper too much, don't we? We start crying, because we like doing it, because you don't see that it's damaging anything else outside of you. All you have to do is take another look at what you could have had, at what it destroyed and took away, at who it hurt and who it's hurting. Take a real look at it. Pull the scales off and take a look at what the entire issue is. Your strength will always be founded in love. If you belong to the living God, your strength is not in anger. Your strength is not in self-resolve. Your strength is always founded in love. Always founded in love. That's where your strength is. That's when you do the impossible thing. That's when you find out you're a walking, living miracle. Most people are waiting on the living God to act. I'm telling you, he put the power within you, but that power is never going to be harnessed. Because many of you try to do it outside of love. And love can only be utilized in its true form, which is your love for somebody else. When you hate the addiction because it's killing everybody else, that's when you'll stand up and say no. No more. And you don't care what the cost is. That's when you stop being afraid. That's when fear no longer works. Pity, it doesn't work. You'll never have an address for pity or fear. That's when it doesn't work anymore. And that's when you realize what the Lord has done. That's when a door is open you never thought would be opened. The whimpering thing, that doesn't work. And all of you know that. All of you know the whimpering thing doesn't work. The begging thing doesn't work. All of you know that. Remember that. Because Satan's at work right now, and he's not going to rest. He will attempt to take every believer out. And how does he take a believer out? By having that believer turn against Christ. I hope you heard me. It does no good for him to kill you. If he kills you, he sets you free. No, he wants you to turn against Christ. And how does one turn against Christ? If you turn away from the smallest principle of Jesus of Nazareth, you have turned against Jesus of Nazareth. If you disagree with a principle of his gospel, you disagree with Jesus of Nazareth. That's how. Why do you think the world is filled with so many different doctrines, denominations? That's him sowing seeds of doubt. That's him. The Holy Spirit's unified. Our Father is unified. Christ is unified. We're the only ones not unified. Why? Because we're the only ones dealing with Satan himself. It's time to see that he's been at work. And God gave you power to boot him out. That's called recognition. You'll never kick him out of your life if you keep denying he's there. He's not there in the first place. He is division. He is that disagreement. He is that biblical argument. That's who he is. He is that debate. Debates began in Rome, not at the throne of God. God decrees, he does not debate. All these human ways have trickled into holy ways, and they have yielded nothing less than death itself. Understand he's at work. And what's coming upon the earth, the finality called the mark, that's going to seal those who have already been conditioned. My humble advice to all is to recognize what he's doing today, right now, and start telling him no. Remember that the power God gave you is founded in love and in love only. You will not use heavenly power outside of the living God. And in the Bible it says God is love. You better believe that that authority and power is founded in love itself. It does not matter how clever a sentence sounds, how hyped up you get off a fake declaration of humanity, a promise from whoever he is. It doesn't matter. God gave you something real. You'll never recognize that until you become real. And that power awaits. And not one of you is held back from standing in the foundations of love itself. That means you can harness all the kingdom power at any given moment. That's up to you. But you have to find out where you're standing. My prayer is that you do so quickly. Folks, I gotta go. I want to say God bless everybody tonight. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. Tomorrow we're back on a regular schedule. Tonight, I'm still crunching numbers. God bless and keep all of you. Hope this in part helped you out. Thank you for the questions that motivated the end of this conversation. I'll see you guys next time right here at the Council of Time. God bless.